Welcome back, Summoners, to the LVL, the League of Legends Varsity League. Once again, we will be your shotcasters. My name is Vulcan, and with me is Arctic. You may have missed the first match, but make sure you don't miss this one. This is going to be between I Academy versus MCL, Malayan Colleges Laguna.
And what I really like about our matches for today is that if we're going to look at how these matches are going up, it's basically the new blood versus the somewhat veterans to the collegiate league in general, because these three teams that we're seeing versus the three newcomers are all people that have competed in the low collegiate league, now transitioning to light the sky here at the low varsity league.
So before anything else, we did mention that match one ended with a 1-1. So let us expect more and more as the matches progress. But before anything else, this is going to be like School Pride Online, right, Arctic?
Right, indeed. So, but overall, I know a lot of people, you are excited to get into this, but let's go ahead and check out a video, episode 2 in a way, of what these guys went through in order to get to where we're at, the apex, which is the low varsity league. So check this out, guys.
Kami po ng team namin, napanood po namin yung LCN na match ng League of Legends. Tapos naisip po namin na gusto namin maglaro, gusto rin namin mapanood kami ng iba. Kaya nag-enroll po kami sa AMAYU kasi nakita rin namin yung AMAYU na representative ng Rizal. Yung goal namin nung umpisa na sana sa susunod na LCL kami naman yung mapanood doon. Tapos ngayon na naging LBL na siya, nakakabigla lang sa pressure kasi parang kailangan talaga effort. Kasi dati parang laro lang kami ng laro. Tapos ngayon kailangan effort talaga para kasi representative na talaga kami ng school.
Isa tong malaking milestone for collegiate esports. Kasi as a gamer, na ma-recognize ka ng school mo is parang sa amin, kakaibang feeling yun.
Respond po. No, I carry.
Its first beneficial thing is morale and mental state issues, because as long as we're in a group, mental state really matters.
Nandito kami bilang second parents nila para i-maintain kung ano yung dapat nilang maintain sa kanilang academics at the same time sa kanilang paglalaro.
It can also be a helpful avenue for a student to improve competitiveness, his personality, camaraderie that could be applied in the real world.
We want to be the example for anyone who thinks that everything you're bad at, there's something that you're actually good at. So I think this is a message for not just for my team, but also for outsiders.
With that being said, School Pride is now definitely on the line. But I really love how I Academy is investing so much into their teams, to their students. I think they're actually one of the best examples so far. Letting students practice in their respective game rooms despite having some schools conflict in between. Not to mention, even investing on a coach itself. So far I can see that I Academy, game changers, they are really putting out the stops, investing so much into their students.
Living up to their name, game-changing moves indeed in preparation to the low varsity league. And like you mentioned, a great example, I feel, not only to the LVL, but even in general, I'd say even to our local pro teams. I think that much investment in an esports team would really propel you to better results. So yeah, definitely something that everybody could learn from. But within a bit, looks like we will be heading into our pick and ban phase in a little bit of a while once our teams are ready. But, still a little bit of anticipation. But let's go ahead and check out our players. As indicated here, of course, in the top lane, it's going to be Nonsense. In the jungle, it's going to be Swar. Nice name. In the mid, it's going to be Import. I wonder if he's an Import, but we'll find out later. ADC, it's Buggy Van. And support, my favorite Ulam Sinigang with their coach, Les Bex Ronquillo.
Asim Kilig is the right word for the taste of the Sinigang. But moving on to the next team, I would say is Malayan Colleges of Laguna. Lucis will be in the top lane, followed by Vonnie in the jungle, Jan in the mid lane, Suka for ADC, while McLeod will be their support. Coach is Eric Avenir Escuera.
Okay, so there you have it, folks, giving you an idea as to what to expect with our teams right now. We have the players in play. Okay, that sounds a little bit redundant, but it's not, believe me. But yeah, I mean, we do have an idea, an inkling. But it is interesting to note, though, for iAcademy, if I'm not mistaken, they won't be playing with one of their main players, the jungler, I believe, due to few personal concerns. But
Like what?
like health.
Hell,
really.
oh, of course.
But yeah, of course, in exchange, they will be subbing out one of their players, and I feel like there will be a transition wherein, due to the adjustments that they need to make, they have to bring out one of their subs, put him into a position, and one of the main roster players himself. Because just to give you guys some insight, here at the LVL, for our main roster, they have to stick to that one role, wherein as our subs, they have a little bit more flexibility as a substitute. They are designated for 2 roles. So this particular sub needs to play a certain role that he's efficient at, wherein a main roster player needs to adjust to fill that void that was left out as a result of their jungler not being able to play for today. And with these type of instances, it comes to a point wherein, as per our rulebook, they will be missing out on one ban during the pick and ban phase. So just in case for our audience, you might be surprised why Academy will be missing out on one. It's because of that unfortunate incident with their roster. But still, they're in it to win it. I still expect a lot, like you mentioned, a lot of investment went into this. Not just for Academy, I'd say, but across all teams. I think for all schools to invest in a varsity team, it's definitely a huge step up. I mean, even in traditional sports, we have seen just how much a lot goes into really boosting your varsity teams to bring out the best and represent the schools to much of their capacity. But looks like we will be heading into the pick and ban phase once again. This is iAcademy's Game Changers versus Malayan Colleges of Laguna Warlocks.
So once again, this is match 2. We have concluded our match 1 with a 1-1 score between UST. I mean, now moving on to match 2. Now we saw an example of what LVL should be, the standards that the first match placed. And I gotta say, it's the fact that not just the pressure that you're now in the LVL, but it's also the fact that you are playing in a preseason batch where you had so little time to adjust. And right now, I think whoever adjusted faster, quicker, adapted, evolved, will be the one to be victorious. And so far for iAcademy, they will be locking up, well, rather, I would say, one of the highest win rates so far in the preseason. The Ezreal can go jungle, can go ADC.
And I mean, we were both witnesses to just how scary an Ezreal could get, just how dirty the damage he dishes out. But yeah, I mean, overall, the thing here is that I'd like to touch on MCL a little bit, because they are a team that has been in the LCL for quite a bit. In fact, one of my personal favorites coming in from the South Luzon Conference. So it's nice to see that they do have a few familiar faces that are back, but still, we'll just have to see if, like I mentioned, it's the rookies versus the somewhat veterans to the collegiate scene, I'd say, as to whether or not, from what we've seen earlier, AMA picking up slack, going hard against UST. So going into a 1-1, so it just goes to show that the rookies definitely have that fight against the veterans. But going back to this pick and ban right here, I'd like to touch on the bans real quick. Ornn and Gangplank going to be taken away. We just have, I think earlier was a demonstration as to just how strong the Ornn is, not only as a tanky element, but he also dishes out quite a bit of damage himself, and prolonging the CC against, especially when you have heavy CC deals like the Sejuani, for example. So,
and also the fact that in the Game Changers, not to mention the preseason patch itself, one of the biggest challenges that I would say for players and champions is the adaptive damage and how you itemize during your lane phase. Because we saw what happened in match 1. I mean, the Gnar versus the Ornn. Ornn deals magic and AD, but Gnar opted to pick up the Ninja Tabi first. But in the end, what happened? He still got, I would say, bursted down, demolished, due to the fact that Ornn deals magic damage and a mix of AD. So I would say in this preseason patch, just from the fact that champions right now start at a lower stat, you really have to be smart in how you path your itemization. It's like there's more strategy involved on what you pick up.
That's true. And overall, that's actually a great point that you brought up with regards to Ornn. There's a little bit of, it's a bit deceptive.
It's a mix.
Yeah. So, but overall, looks like we have our champions fielded in for both the Game Changers as well as the Warlocks. Quick touch up on the second rotation of bans. Syndra and Vladimir taken away from MCL. The Jace and the Sona as well coming in from MCL. So, looking at these compositions go, I love this coming in from MCL, the Zyra. Very classic Ashen Zyra, as popularized by Cloud9 during Season 3, if I'm not mistaken. Season 3 or Season 4, I think it's Season 3. But yeah, this is very interesting because we've been talking about how these supports with quite the AP damage have been making a comeback, especially with elements like Sona. So it's nice to see that Zyra, I'm interested in seeing just how strong she is. Once again, this could be her comeback. It's just that I do estimate that she might be favored a little bit more by supports like Sona maybe, but still, I haven't really seen it in action just yet. So I think MCL, this will be a great opportunity to see just how far that could be taken.
I mean, when we talk about, let's say, the preseason changes, let's not leave out the fact that AP Mages, who really took the scene by a storm, now returning again. But it's not just the fact that, let's say, the pathing of the sorcery is more attractive to some support mates. There's also the fact that Inspiration also offers a lot of playstyles for supports. So I think right now, when it comes to matchup, the Zyra against the Alistar, obviously the Zyra looks like has the advantage, but let us not forget that in the Resolve 3s that melee supports are making somehow a comeback.
Yeah, true. I think it's all about what your composition needs as far as execution, living up to win conditions, and that's the adjustments that you need to make, especially in this preseason, where things, you can kind of get creative with this preseason right now. There's not really a solid meta that has been established yet. It's more of who is in the lead, but looks like we'll be heading into the action once again. This is going to be game 1 for match 2 between Malayan College's Laguna versus I Academy, the Warlocks versus the Game Changers. Let's head into the action.
And so far, this is going to be match 2, MCL Warlocks, as you said. Now entering this game as one of the, not really rookies, but they are the veterans. We did see them in the LCL. They are going to be facing against I Academy, Game Changers. And I really love to point out that how the drafting went, because Camille is somehow the top champions that we don't see often. So what I can expect is that, obviously, I would be really eyeing this Hecarim, especially the Hecarim, because so far it's very fun to play the Hecarim in this preseason because of the Predator, and I think that's a lot of pressure already just by picking up the Hecarim.
Yeah, I think for both sides have managed to pick up some of the champions which are very much, I wouldn't necessarily say OP, but definitely up there with the preseason.
Well, higher
changes.
tier compared to the other
there you
junglers
go. That's the
in a
best
way.
way to put it. Yeah.
So, what can you say, Arctic? I mean, match 1 is our, let's say, not really a benchmark, but it's something that we can expect from seeing the opening matches of the LVL. A very exciting Sunday it is, because this is history already for esports, for Varsity League, and these schools, they have this pride on the line to be called one of the first ever champions of the Varsity League of League of Legends. And I think this is going to be more pressure because you always want to be called first of everything, and schools right now are competing for it. And I really love how I Academy invested a lot. When I like heard that they invested coaches, they even offered schools their students time to practice.
Yeah.
Just from hearing that, I know that they're serious.
Yeah, and I think the time is right. I mean, there were so many instances where an I Academy could have participated in the LCL, but I think it's more of a scenario wherein they were waiting for the right time. And with LVL having come up, the time is now. And we're just going to have to see just how well they perform as a rookie team going up against a seasoned team through the collegiate scene, which is MCL. And like you mentioned, there are quite a number of familiar faces here on MCL, which have been some of my own personal favorites as well, aside from the team itself. So let's go ahead and see if they could perform. But yeah, looking at things happening right now here on the map, looks like both junglers kind of leaning toward this top side. I'm interested in seeing whether or not they'll be looking in for ganks within these first 6 levels before all champions do hit access to their ultimates, but we're just going to have to see how this plays out for both MCL and I Academy.
Yeah, when you talk about early ganks before level 6, as far as I can see in the environment and scene the preseason has so far, a gank at level 3 or level 2 is very, very powerful, because not just the fact that these champions don't have resistances like armor or magic resist, it's the fact that like junglers like Jungle S can easily cheese you at level 2 and there's no chance of escape. But now we're seeing that this Hecarim may opt to cheese the top lane or the mid lane, but seeing how they're playing very say, very not really aggressive, a bit of a conservative lane that I would say in the blue side I Academy, because they are running the Ezreal ADC and Alistar and Malzahar at early levels. I don't think it's that oppressive compared to an Orianna who has superior range.
So there you have it, guys. With things going on here on the map, like you mentioned, Vulcan, it's very, what's the right word I'm looking for?
Tense? I mean,
I wouldn't even say tense. It's very calm from what I. But then again, I think that's the nature of the LVL. Both sides, especially with this being their debut match, especially for Academy, it is their debut match in collegiate esports in general. So both sides, they kind of want to weigh in on just what their opponent might be doing, as well as, of course, this is their first game for the LVL. So there is that factor when they want to play a little bit more careful. They want to minimize the margin for error, I'd say.
I wonder for my Malayan Colleges Laguna, they are doing their best and trying to oppress the lanes of I Academy. But when it comes to, let's say, 5-minute mark, that's not enough. I would say, due to the fact the nature of the runes so far, 10-minute mark will be the optimal time for these champions to actually go all in, show their stuff. But seeing how match 1 was played out, I would say that both teams, like right now at this state, they look calm, they look tense, they just want to farm it out. But in the end, it's how their drafting came into play. I mean, their drafting itself looks pretty, I would say, late game scaling composition for the Warlocks. But for the game changers, I have to expect that this Ezreal will be not that of a huge threat compared to an Ashe, depending how you actually build your Ezreal.
But I was talking a little bit earlier on how this is the very classic Ashe and Zyra that we've seen as popularized during the LCS by Cloud9, Sneaky, and Lemonation, wherein it's very straightforward. Whichever initiation tool you're using, Jamming Crystal Arrow into the Stranglethorn, there's just so many options, I'd say, with how you want to go about. Like Zyra could initiate, Ashe could initiate, but still, it's makes for a very powerful combo. And then if you could wombo combo that on with layering that with the damage coming from Orianna, with the initiate coming in from Vani, Lucis to an extent as well, to make sure that everybody is within, just taking no prisoners. I think MCL definitely has a great chance here if, of course, they could execute correctly during team fights. Again, there's kind of a hit and miss with these type of compositions where there's definitely a clear combo, but at the same time, if you're not able to layer correctly, you could miss out on a certain window of opportunity wherein it just collapses. If it's basically kind of like a machine where it needs to be well-oiled. All the gears need to work in place, and that's kind of all gears need to function in the right order and correctly in order for this well-oiled machine to function. And that's kind of the composition that MCL has right now. Meanwhile, for Academy, it's a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, if you're going to be talking about how these gears all work together, there has to be this main driving person, this main gear, this main engine to drive all these gears all together at the right time, at the right pace. That you can look for the main shot caller of each team. And looking at this environment, this is the LVL where schools right now, the admins are actually supporting these teams. And I think just from the fact of the main support, the supportiveness of the school itself they're getting, doesn't actually make it better for the players. I mean, does it make them more relaxed, more stressed, knowing that they are representing their schools for the first time ever? And first impressions do last. And judging by how match 1 was played, I don't think it was just the players who lost that game, each one game, because these are schools on the line too. I mean, school pride is at stake here when you're talking about the LVL.
But at the same time, I like that you brought that up in the sense that, I mean, I could kind of relate to the teams participating here in the Low Varsity League, especially this is the debut season for it. It's kind of like my own experience when we were in Taiwan for the Low International Collegiate Championship 2016. Like, we were the pioneering teams to basically international collegiate esports, which is technically a lot more pressure because not only are you representing the country, you also want to make that good impression for your country as well. And at the same time, you're competing in completely foreign territory, although the hosts were very welcoming. So it was a very enjoyable experience.
Oh, maybe right now we might be seeing a gang, but that's a bit roughed in. Looks the Hex that Ultimate will be connected. Maokai flashes away. That would be a summoner burnt for nonsense. Whereas Bonnie, I think he overcommitted just a bit. He did get one turret aggro. No champions will be killed so far. First blood still up stake. First turret not secured just yet, but seeing how the lanes are being pushed by the Warlocks, I would say they are at an advantage where they have a very slight goal lead of 600, but that's all concentrated on the lane itself, especially the bot lane. Ashe right now having a CS of 79 compared to a 66 CS Ezreal, who is building the tier and the Sapphire Crystal, but looks like a counter gank will happen in top lane. Lucis gets taken down. That would be the first blood of the game.
That was an interesting opportunity right there. I feel like Lucis really trying to push things, and that overstay may have cost him a bit there. Gets locked down by Nonsense and Solar with a great follow-up. Good start for iAcademy, securing first blood.
So far, I would say the icebreaker of this match, this game, has been done, because first blood is already done. Now teams can actually ease up just a bit, because first blood did go to this Jarvan jungle. Ooh, that is actually painful, knowing that this Jarvan is going to be... One thing I noticed about when you get a first blood, it's either you go for more mobility as a jungler to make your ganks more frequent. Right. And if you do that, that's going to be very, very oppressive for the enemy team. And so far, seeing how iAcademy Game Changers, they were able to get the first blood. This time, I'm pretty sure that Malayan College's Laguna Warlocks will have to think better. I mean, what happened there was they have to shake things off, don't let it get to their head, and they have to go back to the game.
Indeed.
I mean, Artek, you coached players before with the LICC. You are actually a team manager. What are the challenges that you experience? Because I would say that just because not from the supportive part of owning a team or managing a team, don't you think that these students are rather lucky that their admins are actually supporting their passion?
Yeah, and I think, well, believe it or not, if I had to choose a career to make out of my own esports career, if I had to choose between pro and collegiate, like if I had to base it off the players and the managements alone, I'd actually go for collegiate over pro. The reason for this is that the great thing about collegiate is that these are people which have a strong foundation through their education, and we know how schools, not only are they there to educate just from a strictly academic perspective, but they also mold these players as far as, you know, socially, mentally. So there's a certain breeding to these players, and with that breeding comes, you know, they're much more workable. It's actually much more, in my opinion, I actually enjoy working more with collegiate players than pro players, in the sense that collegiate players, they have that respect not only for the management, but even amongst their own players, and they take it a bit more, they play it in a way wherein they learn from mistakes, and there aren't the typical hindrances that you experience in the pro scene, because there's believe me, there's a lot. So, I mean, that in itself, having that said that, it just goes to show that, sure, by pro players, they're much more mechanically gifted, but if you're going to look at the structure, definitely, I'd say collegiate.
That was a rather long statement, but I would say yes, I agree with you on that. The environment for students to grow academically, and wait, we need to come up with a word for sportsmanlike. I mean, esports is a sport itself, but there's this, you know, this image that when you talk about sports, you talk about physical activities or stuff like that. But I would say that sports itself is the spirit of the game itself. I mean, just because you do less physical activity does not make this sport a lesser sport. And I think that stepping up to the Varsity League in esports is something that I see a great change in the Philippines itself, and that the schools are participating. But look at that already, Malayan College's Laguna going for the Mountain Drake, one of the most tankiest Drake in the game. And I don't think iAcademy Game Changers, they have enough time to respawn. They can just watch as an objective gets taken away. The steal, however, fails instead. That's a really bad call. But for Malayan College's Laguna, they will be taking away the Mountain Drake.
There you go. So, yeah, a little bit of a balance right
because
there, but it's like
the bot lane, the headbutt will not connect, and that will be the Unbreakable flashing away. But in the top lane, that will be a Dream-Member tower dive onto Lucis. He gets chopped off. I wouldn't even see it. I mean, What about the rotations coming in from these teams?
Two different gangs, but from what
Flash
I see,
in, flash and flash.
definitely the better person emerging.
Interesting. This is actually pretty a good call from Game Changers because we saw that MCL, they went for the Mountain Drake.
Right.
And what happened there? 3 members went directly to the top lane, got the first turret. They got 2 kills, 1 turret each, but the gold lead now sits a very small favor for Game Changers, and now they are eyeing the Rift Herald.
Just a quick correction from what I said earlier before we got into the game. I mentioned with MCL, my mistake. It was actually the playoffs that they failed to qualify for. They're actually the top seed that made it into the conference, but fell short of qualifying for the actual playoffs. So yeah, which is why I've been talking about MCL a lot with so much potential because they did almost make playoffs before. So I think that's a good telling as to how strong they are. But meanwhile, like you mentioned, with iAcademy, with the effort and resources they put into developing a solid team, it's interesting to note that their coach is actually, as I mentioned earlier, Les Spectrum Kilio, and he's been around not necessarily in collegiate, but even in the pro scene. And it's actually it's a pleasant surprise to see that Specs is back in the game for iAcademy. So I think what we're seeing right now is really a combination of iAcademy with the investment they put in, as well as an excellent coach. And from what I see, pretty talented players from how this has been playing out thus far.
I really love to see how these teams will, make the game explode because so far for kill score 2-0, all the gold is onto Sawyer, the Jarvan. But right now in the top lane, we're seeing that 3 members of MCL, they are going around in circles. They're trying to get this top lane outer turret. And I don't see any respawns from the jungler, the Alistar to support. Sinigang is a bit too far. So it's up to Buggy Van to defend this all on his own. And I think Bunny was just waiting for the right time. And looks like in the bot lane, Lucian again being a victim towards Game Changers' constant gas to himself. I mean, at this point, he's 0-2. He's very vulnerable as a Camille in the early game.
Ooh, but still, I mean, I'm pleasantly surprised with what I'm seeing here from iAcademy because overall, if you're going to look at how this is playing out thus far, I mean, they are successful in terms of the kills, but do take note though, Vulcan, that even with the 2 kills up, gold is still very much evened out. Could be because of the Mountain Drake takes from MCL, but also if you're going to look at the CS, between the Smallzar and Oriana, definitely waves up, also with the Ezreal and the Ashe. If anything, the only difference as far as IAC winning the CS game would be towards top lane between the Maokai and the Camille.
I'm pretty much stoked to see how the team clashes will happen because so far the goal lead, as you said, yes, Artie, I have to agree, it's not that big. It's not an advantage for any team.
Right.
It's how you do a team clash that I wanna see something like this right now. 2 teleports in sync coming into the mid lane. Jarvan takes away onto the shadows, will fear him off. That will be Bonnie taking down Sawyer, and now that'll be a shockwave connecting onto the Maokai, and 3 members alive going in onto the Maokai. Hexing Ultimatum will cut off Import's escape. Looks like Lucis making his revenge. The arrow will not connect. A close call, and that would be Lucis chasing down Import, takes him down, and that would be Janning taking down Nonsense. 3 members down for 2. Sorry, make that 3 for 2 trade with Janny very low on health.
But meanwhile, towards the top side, both AD carries is kind of going at it. Looks like Asuka will be able to defend against the wave, pushing out care of Buggy Van. So yeah, interesting fight right there. I'd say that is a victory up for MCL because that ultimately did end in a 2 for 3 in favor of MCL. So I think this is what I've been talking about right here. With going into these team fights, there's definitely a lot more power with MCL. Let's go ahead and check out what transpired here though. So heavy dive here coming in from iAcademy, but in my opinion there's also a lot of resources that went into trying to take down Janny, that when it came into the later parts of the fight, like there was a lot of ammo exhausted by iAcademy that ultimately was just Import in Nonsense was trying to run things out there, but still with MCL having key members that could dish out quite a bit of damage, like I mentioned, the Oriana as well as the Zyra to an extent as well, especially with the changes. So overall, Lewis is though unfortunately getting cut out by Sinigami here, but ultimately it's still pretty even.
That was actually a very, very close call from the arrow, almost hitting Import. So we saw the team clash we wanted to see. And I think we can say that, again, for the 4 members collapsing onto the Maokai, it looks like the Striking Sword will be used. That will be the driver going in, but the ultimatum dodges that attack. That will be Janet taking on the kill, and looking at 4 members, 5 members collapsing on the Sinigang. He is forced to back off.
Ooh, that is MCL slowly starting to build up momentum. And this is the tricky part right here. Looking at the composition that MCL has, sure, they have a little bit of a leeway to concur a few difficulties in the earlier part of the game, but where they truly shine is when they start hitting this mid to late, in my opinion, because of just how heavy on they could control these clashes through their CC. But then again, iAcademy, they just need to look for that right opportunity, because they have a decent hold in a way. They have
flash in. Very close call. Oh, that would be the Hacker Wave under turret, forced to get the heal, but still Import. Great decision, takes down that jungler, but a double kill will be a trade-off. That is going to be the Warlocks overcommitting under the turret of the Game Changers.
Overcommitment indeed. MCL needs to realize that while they do have great damage, while they also have great CC, they also have that deficiency in the form of their general squishiness, and they can't really afford to go through those heavy dives unless it's a surefire kill. And they ultimately paid the price. What was a 1 against 3 ended in a 0 for 3.
I think the price itself is just huge. Not just the fact that 3 members were down for the kill score to be like that, but it's the fact that all of those kills went to Import. Now his KDA is 4-1-2. Look at his items.
Welcome back to the game, and this Malzahar is going to get stronger than ever. But you know what? What happened there is that I couldn't even say that it was an outplay coming in from Itwart. It was just generally MCL being very careless in that fight. You know, overextending the boundaries, pushing the envelope a bit too much, and they suffered the consequences in the form of a triple without even getting a single kill. And not even getting Import for that matter.
Looks like Wani will have to really just sit back, breathe, and look at the bigger picture, because that overcommitment was his bad call.
Right.
If he did not go too far to the turret, I mean, 3 of his teammates would have to just die useless deaths, unneeded deaths for no objectives, no nothing. And because of this, I would say that Import will come back to the game stronger. And this is something that the Warlocks will have to think through, because this is something that a small mistake can really shape the future of the late game, where I would say the Game Changers so far, a Malzahar, a Maokai, and a Jarvan, is something that the Warlocks will have to really push away, because so far they don't have a strong disengage.
And yeah, with MCL, it's just kind of weird in a way, because like I mentioned, with the composition that they have, it's somewhat of a wombo combo, but if they're not full in on these fights, they miss. Not only in a way, the wombo combo is somewhat minimized, and it leaves less they become much more susceptible to not actually securing a kill, because they really need to get a good layer CC, a good lockdown on the members of IAC to just dish out the max damage that they can. But without the maximum hold, by going full 5 in these fights, like earlier, it was just 3, wasn't able to get a full collapse and suffered a triple kill themselves. Things got really tricky there. So I think that's something that MCL has to look out for. Again, it all comes down to living up to win conditions and realizing the strengths and weaknesses of their composition to propel into a win.
And I think, judging by the game's stats so far, I can say that the Warlocks really have a powerful pushing composition, because they have 2 Mountain Drakes, and it's showing right now, immediately getting 2 turrets away from the Game Changers. And I think this is huge, because when you're talking about, let's say you get aced and you have 2 Mountain Drakes, that is going to be a huge bonus. And I think this makes iAcademy be more careful. If they get swept and they get aced, they could lose more than 2 turrets, maybe 3 turrets, or probably more objectives, because the fact that they have 2 Mountain Drakes, and that's already itself a huge pressure.
flash coming in from Ronnie to get onto Swar's case, but that might be a wasted flash. Not able to secure the kill though.
Oh, this is actually going to be a clutch play. Flashing in for the Cataclysm. Two members get locked down. And with a follow-up from Imper, there is the double knockup from the Shockwave. A shutdown onto the Mountain Heart. But now look at Buggy Van just free hitting at the side. No one's paying attention to him. He gets an easy double kill. And with that said, that's going to be the triple and possibly the quadra. Yes, that is the quadra and the ace for the Warlock.
That was beautiful execution coming in from IAC Academy. Very textbook to how they should be playing out their composition. It's very straightforward. Get the Jarvan in the front line, get Sinigang in the front line, get Nonsense in the front line, and just allow them to zone out MCL in a way and they couldn't get onto Buggy Van. I'm not sure if MCL was just so distracted from the front line, or if it's just them not being able to reach the Buggy Van in the back line. So let's go ahead and see. Cataclysm catches out. Yeah, exactly. It's the flash, and at the same time, he's going to look at things. Even with the Shockwave coming in from MCL, it ultimately boils down to...
Look at the Buggy Man at the last part. Look at his position.
Indeed. And look at how Ronnie here. He kind of decided to want to try to go for Buggy Van, but I think he got deceived by just how low health the other member from IAC Academy was. So by switching targets, it effectively just allowed Buggy Van to free hit like there's no tomorrow.
So with that said, just from the ace itself, the game changes. IAC Academy will be taking away their fourth turret, making the gold advantage still not that, I would say, game-changing, that any pun, but it's the fact that the quality kill went to the Ezreal, immediately getting a 402 KDA, getting the items, getting the fully stacked mana, and now onto the Frozen Gauntlet. So far, it looks like Lucis will be teleporting away. Oh, he decides to cancel, trying to back off, but this gives the Warlock their third stack on the Mountain Drake, and I think Lucis will be pretty much the sacrifice, and pretty much the game changers may opt to go for the Baron.
Oh man, this may be tricky for MCL. And it's interesting that you brought up, this is a triple stack of Mountain, but what's the use of stacking up a Mountain Drake if you're not even able to find yourself in a position to siege?
Oh,
and this will be...
The Baron can work against you, and I don't know what that Orianna was thinking, just walking into the heat of battle. Two members get knocked up by the Stranglethorn, but leaving Buggy Van to free hit. That is going to be a penalty, and another double kill for the Ezreal. That last moment, the silence really, I think, shook Johnny in a way that he just walked. Because if you look at his position there, he clearly just stepped inside the silence. And then, what can he do? He can't even move. He doesn't have the ghost. He couldn't even cast any spell. And I think that's actually a miscalculation, misstep from the Warlocks, forcing them to lose that fight. And in the end, game changers, they take away the Baron.
And MCL just really suffering the consequences of what they've drafted.
Let's look at the Orianna here. I mean,
exactly. You know, spots out IAC Academy taking the Baron, and IAC Academy just, okay, Johnny overextending his boundaries, let's go for him. And this is where MCL is really starting to suffer. Like I mentioned, they have a great wombo combo, but what they heavily lack in is that warm body to front line for them. Sure, the Camille could technically frontline for them, but Camille is in the tank. If you're going to look at her itemization, Trinity Force, Ravenous Hydra, and just the general nature of Camille, you know, so this may be tricky for MCL at this point. And even the Hecarim, not really full committance to a tank himself. And this is something that we brought up during our cast during the LCL. With the changes during the preseason, you can't really be the best of both worlds anymore. You have to choose the world that you want to live in. Do you want to try to be that solid beat of a frontliner, or just so that it can take a lot of damage, or do you want to just bring the mayhem?
Oh boy, that's a lot of resources burnt up to Sinigang. Teleport will channel through. This will be Import joining the fight. 2 members, 3 members. Wow! Look at that. 3 members instantly responding. And yeah, that's what I keep saying. During the LCL, during the cast itself, you gotta pick what you wanna be. You can't be everything. We now see the top laner is, we are so used to the fact that when we pick up runes, we get scaling MR. If you wanna get scaling MR, or you want scaling armor, you don't have that luxury anymore. And seeing it on Game Changer side, we see someone who's fully committed to be a tank, to be a front liner. We see Jarvan picking up the Knight's Vow, the Maokai getting the Righteous Glory, the Visage, and components towards the Thornmail. So now you have 2 tanks. half MR, half armor. The Crystal Arrow will connect on to the Ezreal. No follow-up there. Shockwave does connect on to the S, but there will be no more follow-up just yet. The redemption is going to come through. That would be a heal, but Sinagang just flashes in towards Johnny. And now with that said, Ezreal survived everything that the Warlocks threw at him for a one trade-off. 4 members, 5 members, an ace again for the Game Changers. And with that said, I think I Academy will be taking away this game.
Man, even with the experience that MCL has on the table, ultimately with the great support staff as well as living up to their win conditions to the D, congratulations, rookies, to the LoL Varsity League. I Academy emerges on top for Game 1.
Whew. I would say that it's a lot of mistakes that the Warlocks made. Then I hope to see that they come back from it, they shake things off, and they do not make the same mistake what we saw in match 2 of Game 1, where the I Academy Game Changers, wow, I gotta say, they're I think it was the fact that the Warlocks themselves, they gave so much resources towards that Ezreal, getting the Quadra, that immediately skyrockets that gold, finishing up the Frozen Gauntlet, and then getting the Borg, and that's just the Warlocks overcommitting to the Baron itself.
I gotta say, for MCL, going into Game 2, one of the things that I would love to see them correct is, based on how they built around with their composition, it's like looking at too many chefs in the kitchen. You have a lot of people that dish out damage, but like, where's your frontliner? Where's that person that could just go heavy in and it's just like deal with all the damage that comes his way? So it's really more of not only just how they played out the game, but also something that they have to look into even within the drafting phase.
It's like you have to think, should I invest, should my team invest in someone who's a total tank? Or should we invest in a bruiser? Because when we talk about bruisers, let's say Camille, Renekton, Kled, we're so used to them being tanky, being the frontliners, but the pre-season just strips off all the resistances that the champions can scale. They have to depend on items even more, or their innate kit to be tanky. Camille has the adaptive shield, but yeah, I don't think that's going to cut it out, especially when you're talking about mixed damages. And now, with that being said, congratulations to I Academy Game Changers for winning Game 1 of Match 2 against Malayan College's Laguna Warlocks. And with that said, let's hope that in Game 2 that they do shake things off, that the Warlocks do not make the mistakes that it's clearly, even to the naked eye, that you can see that it's a clear miscall.
Indeed. So, man, I'm really looking forward to Game 2, so I guess that's...
Let's wrap things up, and we'll be back after a short break. We have been the Shoutcasters. My name is Vulcan, and with me was Arctic. See you after the short break for Game 2. And that'll be a Shockwave connecting onto the Maokai, and 3 members alive going in onto the Maokai. Hextech Ultimatum will cut off Import's escape. Looks like Lucis may get his revenge. The arrow will not connect. A close call, and that would be Lucis chasing down Import, takes him down, and that would be Johnny taking down Nonsense. 3 members down for the Cactus, 2 members get locked down, and with a follow-up from Import, there is the double knockup from the Shockwave. A shutdown onto the Mountain Heart, but now look at Buggy Van just free hitting at the side. No one's paying attention to him. He gets easy double kill, and with that said, that's going to be the triple, and probably simply the Quadra. Yes, that is the Quadra. I don't know what the Oriana was thinking, just walking into the heat of battle. 2 members get knocked up by the Strangle Floor, but leaving Buggy Van to free hit. That is going to be a penalty, and another double kill for the Ezreal. That last moment, Crystal Arrow will connect on to the Ezreal. No follow-up there. Shockwave does connect on to the S, but there will be no more follow-up just yet. The redemption is going to come through. That would be a heal, but Sinagang just flashes in towards Johnny. And now with that said, Ezreal survived everything that the Warlocks threw at him for a one trade-off. 4 members, 5 members, an ace again for the Game Changers. And with that said, I think I Academy will be taking away this game.
And even with the experience that MCL has on the table, ultimately with the great support staff as well as living up to their win conditions to the D, congratulations, rookies, to the LoL Varsity League. I Academy emerges on top for Game 1.
I would say that it's a lot of mistakes that the Warlocks.
Not enough Garena shells to buy the latest League of Legends skin? On sale now? Get shells anytime, anywhere with your Globe or Touch mobile number. Go to gamer.com.ph and sign up with your mobile number and enter the verification code you will receive via SMS. Log in and choose the game and pin you want. Check out to purchase the pin with your load or through your postpaid account and receive the pin on your phone instantly. Never miss a sale on your favorite League of Legends skins and champions with Gamer.